Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Professor Greg Dooley and the pundit Steve Clark. Men, take the mic.
Is it an end of an era? It's the Professor and the Pundit with Greg Dooley and Steve Clark, and we're proudly presented by Nick Hopwood, who's a certified financial planner, founder, and president of Peak Wealth Management. Retire with peak confidence. Visit Nick's website at peakwm.com.
Yeah, it wasn't really that close. There were some moments, but Steve, now we're kind of picking up the pieces. We should go to your question. Was it the end of an era? Did we just see the end of this great era?
No, I don't think so. I think this is just merely the end of a round. You think about Ohio State in the 1970s during the 10-year war. Was the era over after winning 2 or 3 from 69 to 71? Heck no. Michigan continued that era, 76 through 78 with Rick Leach and company. Maybe
a pivot point in an era for sure. Hopefully a good one. It's definitely the end of a chapter. A great chapter, and 2024, that win and the way we finished in the bowl game extended it a little bit for all of us, and it continued up to this game, which was so nice to have. But when I actually have a term for era in my classes, I have 5 eras of Michigan football. I call the first one the club era. That's when teams were kind of run by the guy who just graduated or one of the former players or, kind of a business manager. Then the Yost era. That's obvious. Chrysler, Schembechler. And I believe we are in a 5th era called the Harbaugh era. And unfortunately, Steve, the eras always end really badly, really poorly. That's why you need a pivot and thus a change. So I'm with you. Are we boxing? Are we in the middle of the ring? Usually the eras are at least a couple decades long. This is a decade since the Harbaugh era took over. I hope we have more punches left in us.
What if Michigan wins next year and it's 5 of 6? Did the new era start in 2026, or can it be a continuation of the Harbaugh era, even though it's being coached by Sharon Moore?
Well, there are always new coaches in each era. I mean, Fielding and Jost only coached for 20 years. I mean, yeah, it went on. It moved to Harry Kipke. They won 2 more national titles. So this is still part of that Harbaugh era. And if it doesn't work out for Sharon, we could see a Harbaugh protege. I think it's almost likely that we'd see someone, because the natural reaction would go, this didn't work. Let's grab something that worked from Harbaugh, and we'll see. But I'm hoping, like you said, Steve, Sharon Moore has many bullets left in the chamber. We've got a lot of good players coming back. One thing we know about this team is that they were very, very young, particularly number 19 at quarterback.
Yep. What did we say from the very beginning about true freshman quarterbacks? They just don't become championship level overnight. It doesn't happen that way, but people don't want to see it.
Except for our guy. That's always the thing, right? Yeah.
Michigan always received the benefit of the doubt because of the winning streak this year. It was always fun hearing it. It's like, well, Ohio State should dominate Michigan, but they still have to play Michigan, so you never know. That was a lot of fun to hear. But nationally known people, I thought they were afraid to pick Ohio State in this game for fearing of being burned or the Who being fooled again. We won't be fooled again. This goes away now until Michigan wins again, hopefully next year.
So all the coaches and players, Steve, are getting those gold pants. This goes back to a tradition from 1934. I'm not going to get another one of these special pendants that Harbaugh and Sharon have made the last 4 years. Do they still have a manufacturer of these gold pants, or do they?
I've heard the designer of the gold pants went out of business due to inactivity. The team now gets their gold pants from a pawn shop in Linden or possibly Hilltop.
I don't think they can actually be gold due to NCAA regulations from the past. Maybe they can now. But with gold prices these days, Steve, I wonder what Nick would say about this,
It's just the paint. Again, this is probably coming from a pawn shop in Linden or Hilltop.
So we got...
The quality won't be good.
No, it will not be good. And they're tiny, okay? They're not like those bodacious pendants that Harbaugh made. But we had the dream start, Steve. The big run in the first drive, right?
First play.
Didn't score. Big runs. Okay, we got to score. But then we get that early turnover. And you know what everyone's thinking, and all the pundits around the country are thinking,
pundits.
Okay, it's on. They're feeling it. This is what we thought. Julian Sayin isn't used to the pressure. It's a little cold out there. What are they going to do? Are they going to try to win a certain way again like they did in 2024? We didn't get those touchdowns. And yes, we thought Zavada was going to be a key. He made the clutch kicks, but it's all we made, and it's all we did. And in the end, Steve, time after time, hats off. You have to tip your hat. They were tougher. Right? Ryan Day didn't have to say it. They were, and no matter what, and there were some calls, and I don't even think we're going to talk about them, but they proved to be the better team. It wouldn't have mattered, and they were better. And hats off to the Buckeyes. They played an outstanding game and deserved it.
I don't think any controversial calls affected the outcome of the game. So what's important to know, though, and I hate going over it, but negative rushing yards for Michigan in the second half. 18 plays in the second half. 1 of 9 on third down. Big plays given up in the air defensively. There were tackling issues. No pressure on the quarterback. TOP was just under 20 minutes. I mean, it's a long list. I'm going to stop it at that point.
I'll add a couple.
Well, fine.
8 completions for 63 yards. Where was Andrew Marsh? The shutout in the second half just got choked out. It's kind of what we wanted to do to them, right? That was kind of what we wanted to do. They did turn the tables on us. So what are you going to say?
So not much. I mean, there's not much to say. There's not much to argue. There is not much, whatever Ohio State wants to say right now, they can just say it, and I can choose to ignore it or just live with it. And I'm just going to live with it for right now. In a year, there'll be a rematch in Columbus where Michigan has a 2-game winning streak at their place.
That's true. There you go. So speaking of Mr. Brightside, we are such the young team. There should be so many lessons. There is the thing that Harbaugh did where he was not succeeding. He looked himself in the mirror. He made big changes. He brought in younger staff. He did some different things. I would expect, we don't know yet, these are topics for future podcasts, Steve, but I would expect some positive change to come out of this, assuming we can keep the talent and do all those things that are necessary in the modern day of college football, including our finances, right? But having that taste of 4 years in a row, I think the donors will be motivated to support and keep this thing rolling. Hope to hear more.
Michigan football wasn't eliminated from playoff conversation until Saturday afternoon. Few teams could say that. It makes it a much more enjoyable season for me, knowing that it isn't, for a waste, and hopefully for you, the listener, that there was something to look forward to in each Saturday. Many teams were basically eliminated in October. Michigan did have an easier schedule. It gets a lot tougher next year, but I think there's going to be some improvement on the team as the youth get a little bit more experience. I am kind of surprised, and this is a bright side thing, that Ryan Day took the high road. I had really thought for a couple of years that if they had won, it was going to be bully pulpit time for Ryan Day. Bringing up old issues. Instead of asking for Lou Holtz, I thought there might be a call out for Connor Stallions. You didn't know what you were going to get, and he had 2 opportunities to do it on the field right after the game. And said, I'm going to choose humility. My concern was addressed earlier because he says, a lot of people have asked me, what am I going to say when this is finally going to happen? And I got a lot to say. Now's not the time.
To Ryan Day's credit, it's probably a bigger flex to not say anything, especially after a game like that. Okay.
It's a flex of self-restraint.
To Ryan Day's discredit, every time he seems to open his mouth about this rivalry or talk about toughness, he kind of puts a shoe in his mouth and looks dumb. Maybe the Ohio State fans eat it up, but he probably took the better route here. So there you go. Ryan Day, you got one. To Steve's point, we've got you 2 straight times at your home place. We'll see you next year. What's next, man? I'm hoping for the bowl gods tend to look favorably on Michigan because we're a big draw, right? People tend to be surprised, like, whoa, we've got a really good bowl matchup. I don't know if people are going to travel. We always do. There's those super groups of people who go to every game, and we're going to have people there. But I just hope that there's enough interest in this game. Maybe we get one of those teams that's on the fringe or the bubble of the CFP, Steve, like, wow, well, wouldn't you put them against Michigan on a big stage and make one of those other bowl games a little more interesting other than the giant playoff?
I think initially the thought it might be Tennessee. Now I think it actually might be Vanderbilt and quarterback Jaden Pavia.
Yeah.
Heisman Trophy, a front runner for a couple of weeks or so. Vanderbilt had a fantastic year. They finished off their season with 10 wins and got a big win, their in-state rival, if you want to call it that, in Tennessee at Neyland.
That would be a lot of fun. That'd be a lot of fun. And listener Lou would like that one. He's got a daughter at Vanderbilt, and he's been there for a couple of games. So we'll see about that, Steve, and our golfing buddy.
So it's a possibility that it would be Vanderbilt in Orlando once again.
Lou, it's a good thing I sent your vest back to you if you're listening. Okay. He's got a Vanderbilt vest. All right. A few sight and sounds, Steve. Beautiful. Yeah. What a beautiful scene. Now, of course, Steve and I are behind the glass indoors, drinking Tim Hortons coffee, warm, enjoying ourselves. But the snow was beautiful. The scene was beautiful. Everything but the frustration of the game. Yeah. Just and the hype and that din before the game when the team comes out. The students were there early. The place was filled to the rafters. But in the pregame, I got a surprise. I walk up early with my daughter to the countdown to kickoff. And who do I see but the pundit himself wearing one of those Jim Harbaugh work coats? And it doesn't say pundit. I would have said pun. I would have said big pun. It said Steve like Harbaugh did. Where did you get those, Steve? Because Sam had one, Ira had one. That was cool.
Got that from Joe Simon.
That was really cool.
From Joe's Garage, Joe Simon, the MichiganDefenders.com, gave us all a matching coat that resembles as close as they possibly can to the authentic, real thing. And I think the manufacturer is the same. The name tag is actually the only thing that's different was it actually didn't come. The University of Michigan didn't make it for us. Joe had it made for us.
I love it.
And that's really cool. I've seen those things as far back as 2022. They may be even older than that, but I've seen them wear it publicly since then. Some people think that's a new invention this year because Sharon came out of it for a press conference in the middle of the year. That's been there, but you kind of look like an auto mechanic changing the oil. It's a blue collar mentality.
Just like the pundit.
It's very blue collar. Oh, very blue collar.
Your hands are soft.
Oh,
you lie.
My God.
You lie.
Yeah, right.
I saw you out there putting your Christmas lights up. You were killing it out there.
Yeah, I've changed my oil every once in a while.
They're cool. Yes, it is definitely tradition. I see my students, my football playing students wear them. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Steve, you know where there's a lot of love for Big Pun, for the guy across the glass from me?
Countdown to kickoff?
Flint, Michigan.
Okay.
Flint, Michigan. Thank you to the alumni club up there. We've got some very loyal listeners who approach me and praise for the podcast, which is so cool to hear. We forget that sometimes. But we know this show means so many to you, and thank you for those loyal listeners. But beyond that, some specific praise for the pun for your job on the radio, your role in the countdown to kickoff, as kind of Steve, the guy who tells it to him straight. Because now this is definitely a Michigan-friendly show. Let's not kid ourselves. This is, and so is the countdown to kickoff.
Yes.
But Steve will call it like it is, much more than say your co-host, who we love, Sam and Ira.
Most of the time.
And that was part of the praise you got. So thank you for everyone. I love the people up in Flint and the alumni club up there. Thanks for the love. Thanks for letting me talk. And we talked a little bit about the rivalry, but you know what they want to talk about? They want to talk about what everyone wants to talk about, which is the business side of college athletics and all the changes over the couple of years. Can you tell me about this? What is this private capital? That's the stuff we talk about. But I mixed some Ohio State stuff in, I assure you.
Sure.
So it was fun. Can I give a shout out to our neighbor, Joe McGreal? We live in Arkansas, who has a beautiful tailgate for his clients at Urban Industries. Steve and I have been there. In fact, they had to kick us out in 2021 when we wouldn't leave after the Ohio State game. Thank you.
That's 4 years ago.
Yeah.
After a snowfall.
We'd still be there. If they didn't start vacuuming and kick us out. But my man, I gave a little presentation on the rivalry to his clients. Thank you, Joe. Thank you to the clients of Urban Industries. That was a blast. Hey, I did wander down at halftime into the rarefied air of the fourth floor. Mm-hmm. Guess who I saw? A pair of brothers, Steve. I'll give you one hint. Guten Tag. How's the NBA? I'm talking about the Wagner brothers. Franz and Mo were up there along with the whole team, piled into one suite, and they were just hanging out. Nice. And I talked it up with those guys. The last time I saw the two of them was on the field at Houston. I'll probably mention it on this show, where I saw them both and I said, Guten Tag, boys! And they were like playing around in the confetti. So another time, a better time, a more joyous time. Speaking of joyous, we had still had fun at Oscars. It was kind of a celebration of this chapter, of this round, if you will, and had a lot of fun, including friends of ours, but also our man Timmy Adams, who was there once again.
Were you heartbroken when it
What's
was
that?
over? When it was over, I was.
game?
When Michigan loses, I've gone through years where I'm angry, not to the point where I think everybody should be fired and everything's got to change. I mean, I try to keep a level head of it, but just angry about circumstances. And I haven't been this year when they've lost. And I wasn't really angry when they lost in 2024 either.
Maybe the last several years has something to do with that and all the success we've had. And I think there was also a realization, which we've stated on this podcast, this wasn't ever going to be a great team. There was hope. We hoped that things would change with a young team. They would grow. People would fill in positions. We just never saw it. So what exactly was next? Were we going to the Big Ten championship game and winning that and going on? And some of you are listening going, yeah, Dooley, that's what we wanted. That's what we thought. Never really thought that. Were we winning a national championship this year? There was a 0% chance we were winning it. And I feel like there was a bit of a recognition of that. I would have liked us to play them a little closer. I would have liked to see some better things happen. I would have liked to get a couple of those touchdowns to maybe extend this thing into the third or fourth quarter. But nonetheless, at these moments, as you get older, I think you start to just appreciate the day, the excitement around what we had. And that's how I felt about it. And that's generally how I feel about these games. I don't get too bent out of shape. I know some of you are out there, you're probably not listening because you don't want to talk about this. You don't want to hear about it. And it ruined your week or more that we lost this game. I don't feel that way.
What's regrettable is you start seeing reels from people saying, should Bryce Underwood transfer?
Okay.
This is the overreaction that I just...
For Michigan fans? Okay, I definitely don't want that.
I wouldn't say they were Michigan fans, but people who bring up conversations to entice. I don't need these things. I did spend the third quarter out in the stands with my daughter and my father-in-law, who were sitting in our usual seats. So I sat with them in the third quarter. Saw way too many Ohio State fans there. Really surprised how many tickets they were able to gobble up.
Yeah, so is that a concern of yours? Because that is a common complaint of Michigan fans. Like, who would ever sell their tickets on the open market knowing that they could be gobbled up by Ohio State fans? Where you stand on that? Because it is an issue for a lot of
I know
people.
it is true. I also know that expenses are a lot, and so is the potential payday.
Yeah.
But usually in other stadiums, they refuse.
Okay.
This one tends to either look at it practically or they don't care as much. They sell.
And the tickets and all that, the world is changing. And I think a lot of the fans feel bent about those Dave Brandon days and when we're surveyed and then you get a seat license on top of it. And then we had losing football. I think it frustrated a lot of fans. I have a hard time really questioning someone what they do with their tickets because they do spend a lot of money. That's the hard part for me, Steve. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there was a real clear way to just make sure that you get a fair price and it only goes to a Michigan fan. I know we have our own things, but who's to know? They're so easy to transfer.
Wouldn't that be a wonderful world, Greg?
Yeah, but
it's a wonderful place to be.
It is.
One cool thing, just to get off that topic for a moment, the marching band came down our aisle, played the Victors and Let's Go Blue in the middle of the third quarter. Really like that. That was neat.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's awesome. I had the joy, though, Steve, of spending the time with Tim Adams, our great sponsor from Maverick Technology Partners. We didn't talk business. We talked fun. We hung out on Friday night. We hung out at the game. And Tim is our wonderful sponsor for Maverick Technology Partners. We just celebrated Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for Maverick Technology Partners. I'm thankful for the services they provide, what they do for their customers. I heard a couple more stories from Tim about, again, that specific and caring aspect of personal service for you. You want to find out about it? Go ask. Do you want someone to manage your data center? You need support over the holidays or into next year on your IT teams. You need world-class project managers. You need to find a new leader of your IT organization. Where else? MaverickTechnologyPartners.com.
Well, Greg, there's a ton of Ohio State graduates just trying to hack your system, and it's just getting worse. So try to enjoy the holidays with your family and get the peace of mind. Maverick Technology Partners.
You know, social media is just fraught with all these Buckeye trolls constantly talking about Counter Stallions. I know it because I've been more active on TikTok, which, by the way, is a whole different audience, I found out. So I have to ignore all those complaints. But one of the things that erupted on social media with a lot of national basketball pundits, Steve, was our performance in Las Vegas at the Players Era tournament. How much of this did you get to catch in the weekend?
Saw all 3 games during the middle of the week, and I've never seen anything like it before. And obviously, by NCAA standards, no one has. To win by 40, then to win by 30 over a ranked team, then to win by 40 over a ranked team, it just hasn't been done.
Yeah.
And the closest thing that I can remember coming to it was watching the Fab Five beat Kansas and North Carolina in the Rainbow Classic in back-to-back games. They were close, but they were both top 5 opponents, and that helped Michigan excel in the sophomore year of the Fab Five. But this was total domination. For Mark Few at Gonzaga, who has been there since like 1999, this was the worst loss in Gonzaga history since 1991, losing by 40 points like that. And Gonzaga plays teams too.
Oh, yeah, they got players too.
They've had players and they play teams, and this just doesn't happen. And Michigan just destroyed it. I mean, this is a finals. They talked about a great front court versus another great front court. It's going to be a battle going the full 40 minutes. No, it was 13-3 within the first 3 minutes, and it was essentially over before it even started.
Yeah, Scott Van Pelt, great guy from ESPN, called it horrifying. He couched it. He said it's early, but he said it's horrifying what they did, as in frightening to the rest of the NCAA. It was, man. And out of it, are we seeing, it's called the Players Era, are we seeing a new era of NCAA basketball where they're going to expand this thing, they're going to up the payout? Obviously, it was fun for Michigan fans to watch. Not a lot of people attended in person, but maybe this becomes a bigger, more of a thing, more of a destination to go watch these games. And roughly $1 million to participate and another $1 million for the winner. The most common question at dinners and the tailgates and stuff was, what happens to that money? And so I think I found out, Steve, it wasn't very specific. That money does not all go to the current players, as you might imagine. But I did.
Make it rain, everybody! Make it rain. That doesn't happen. They just scatter cash in the locker room, and the first to get it gets it.
Let's just call it a really good hunch that they do get a bonus. The players did get a bonus out of this, which they should. They deserve it. It was crazy. The broadcast, if you had the sound up, Grant Hill, of course, the great NBA Piston and Duke player, and Brian Anderson were just chit-chatting for almost an hour in the second half because they had nothing to talk about. They kept cutting to Lauren Jabara, the Michigan grad, who's the sideline reporter, on little vignettes that they, like, Steve, as someone who knows media like you do, like, what do we talk about now? It was crazy. And I was on the floor actually watching the second half. I was with my dog just kind of hanging out, and I didn't see the time. But I'm thinking, okay, the game must be because they're cycling through players, they're doing dunks. I look up. There's 7 minutes to go in the game still. It was really like that. It was remarkable, man.
Everybody on the Michigan roster essentially got to play because of the blowout and the size of the blowout and when you could put people in. The second game against Auburn, Bruce Pearl had nothing to say because all he did was prepare for his son's team and the team that he used to coach, that same Auburn team that eliminated Michigan back in March. And then it was just great to see Grant Hill, Jamal Mashburn, Chris Webber, and Jalen Rose talking about the early 90s together. And because Chris Webber and Jalen Rose could talk, I mean, this turned into a 60-minute commercial for Michigan basketball, past and present, during the second half of that Auburn game. I mean, It was just amazing. They even let Rose and Webber, call the second half while they took a rest. An amazing tournament in which the teams that Michigan blew out, maybe they just were overrated. Those teams like San Diego State and Auburn then punished their opponents.
Yeah. It's wild.
Afterwards, and Gonzaga went in, they were beaten their first 2 games by 40 or 50 points as well.
Yeah. It occurred to me, because we kept cycling players into, that we have 2 teams on this current roster that would probably beat Jawan's last couple of years that bad. We could split our roster and beat him that bad. That's how good it looked.
It was something else, and because of it, Michigan is now number 2 in the coaches poll, number 3 in the AP, and that was a part of the discussion is where do you rank these guys now when you have a star-studded and ranked field, and Michigan just goes right through it. What do? Purdue, still number one in the nation and still should be. They weren't knocked off, and it wasn't like Purdue played close games last week. They were blowing out their opponents by 40 and 50 points. So what do? Well, take an effect at the way Michigan played before this tournament. They're number 2 or number 3 in the nation now, and I decided to go buy tickets for Michigan at Purdue at Mackey.
Oh, boy, that'll be fun.
February 17th, 6:30 p.m. is the scheduled day. Just going to take a day off work and head down there and watch that game with my wife and son.
Should be amazing. And you mentioned the Fab Five, and first of all, probably the best basketball game I've ever seen was that semifinal, in person, was that semifinal against Kentucky in New Orleans ahead of the North Carolina game. And to see all those guys together, I have so much respect because probably the best player in that individual game was Jamal Mashburn.
He was the star.
Of course, with Weber there, with Jalen there, the topic of honoring the Fab Five came up. And I think some people misreported this because what I heard was basically, you have to honor these guys was the question. It turned into the banners are going back up. I think they're two separate things because the guys, people, I don't think the banners are coming back up for the Final Four just between us friends. Maybe one day. I don't think it's going to happen on Ward's watch. But I think what Dusty was saying is we should honor the Fab Five in some way because even the announcer said, how about like a 5 banner or something? And Dusty said it's going to happen. He didn't say what's going to happen. And frankly, it's probably not Dusty's call. But something should be done more formally for the Fab Five. No, not 5 statues. That's wild. It got reported as the banners are coming back up. Okay. And that's what I heard people say. And that's not what I heard.
No.
Okay.
But the sign out there that's always prevalent, Michigan versus everybody. Everybody has forgiven the Fab Five.
Yes.
So
yes.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not give the full treatment, everything? Put the banners back up, let it go. Everybody else in the world seems to have forgiven them. Now, history lesson for the younger listeners and a reminder for the older listeners. Michigan versus Kentucky, 1993. Kentucky basically did the Players Era tournament through the first 4 rounds of the NCAA tournament. Were the most unstoppable number 1 seed ever. Michigan was also a number 1 seed, and if there was a critic to the Fab Five's games their sophomore year was they always seemed to be playing at the level of their competition. So if they were playing the 8th seed in the second round, they played like an 8th seed. If they were playing like the 11th seed, they would have played like the 12th or 13th seed in George Washington. In the third round, they played to the level of George Washington. And then it was Temple, the 7th seed. And nobody gave Michigan a chance to win this because Michigan was escaping in those games. And Kentucky was dominating. And then Michigan wins in overtime over Jamal Mashburn in Kentucky. It was just the most impressive thing that I've seen Michigan do. And opposite of expectations. Yeah,
fantastic. What a time. Were we out late that night on Bourbon Street, Steve? We saw the sunrise, my friends and I, that night. So I'll tell you, it was fun. And yes, the Fab Five were down there somewhere. I never ran into them. We do got to remember, they do have all these players, and they were doing all these things, and everything seemed to click. It still relies on the 5 guys on the floor. They still have new players. They still need to make the right shots, and it is really early in the season, but this will be a very fun team to watch. Very fun team to watch. And so hats off to Dusty May and these guys, man. And again, for putting all these players in, there's a lot of new faces, and they really do seem to click. And you saw it happen right before your eyes.
Michigan next playing on December 6th. That's Saturday.
This is a tough team right here. Sometimes people that are standing on third base think they hit a triple, but they didn't.
Hey, it's Nick Hopwood, CFP at Peak Wealth Management. At Peak, we have over 25 years of planning and investment experience. We've been through the tough years with bear markets, 2001, 2008, 2020, and 2022. We've navigated these tough years for hundreds of clients to and through retirement. If you're looking for a tough team, check out the CFPs at Peak Wealth. Learn more at peakwm.com/mgoblog today.
This is a tough team right here. Kick his ass, Seabass.
Women's.
Boy, they've been fun to watch. They've been fun to watch. They didn't have quite the players era tournament, but they have been blowing out teams very badly. They blew out Notre Dame. I think we might have mentioned it. They were up 40 in the second half. A Notre Dame team that beat USC. Yes, it's not quite the powerful USC team, but a ranked USC team. Michigan had them up 40 in the second half. This is a really, really good team led by these super sophomores. We talk about Silas Swords and Liv Olson on this podcast. Nick had Liv and Sila on his podcast. But Mila Holloway and Tay Delphos have really stepped up their games. Tay dropped 20 in a game recently, and Mila, the point guard, I think has been the key because she's scoring way more efficient, making way few turnovers. They dropped a tight one to the top team in the country, that's UConn, but Silas Swords had like a viral moment where she scored 9 points in the final minute like Caitlin Clark. They crushed Syracuse, crushed Detroit Mercy. Last I saw, Steve, they were number 6 in the country.
Still are.
Women's basketball, in over 50 years of basketball at Michigan, it might be the last team, certainly from the beginning of the Title IX era, where we added varsity sports, to never win a Big Ten championship of any kind. It's a wild stat. Could this be the year for Kim Barnes or Rico? I wonder, though, if they, at this point, have sights on things like Final Fours. The farthest we've made it was with Naz Hillman making it to the Final 8 years ago. This could be a team that surpasses that. We'll see. They've got a lot of tough teams on their schedule left, though.
That's right. There's a lot of competition there. It's not a guarantee. You got UCLA, number 3 in the nation right now. Maryland just behind number 6 Michigan at 7. And Iowa is number 11. Juju Watkins, a reminder, not playing this year, recovering from her torn ACL. That's why USC isn't in the top 10. I think they're in the teens right now.
Yeah, but they have another fantastic freshman. So women's basketball is on the rise, man. And you want to talk about a hot ticket, man. I'm telling you. Get in, get to see these guys. When they're on, sometimes just like hoops, you got to find out what channel they on, where they on. They were on NBC the other day. Sometimes they're on Big Ten Plus, FS1. They're all over the place. So it's probably driving people like us and older crazy, Steve, but you got to find them. Hearing a lot about the hockey team. Now, if there's one class, one group of athletes where I seem to get like all the top players, it's hockey players. And that's been the beginning since I started here for whatever reason, Steve. Like all the guys that you know from Michigan that are in the NHL that you follow, I've had in my class. They're good kids. They're a little different. A lot of them are Canadian, right? That's not a rip. That's not a tease. But back-to-back sweeps of Ohio State and Harvard. This is the number 1 team right now in the country. They got a huge, huge matchup coming up against Michigan State, which will probably be, I know it's early, probably be for a number 1 seed or thereabouts the way things are going. They didn't make the tournament last year, which is super disappointing for a hockey team. This team is looking really good. They made some changes in their team, their roster. They have a very tight personality-wise team, and they found a goaltender.
I'd say.
Yeah, they found a goaltender that's Jack Ivankovic. He came from the CHL. He's a Canadian. With the new rule that you can have players that sign contracts with the CHL, props to Brandon Dorado to looking at the rosters, to finding this kid and saying, hey, how about some time in college hockey? And he has been worth it. So number 1 Michigan hockey. Maybe that's why we don't feel so bad, Steve, with all these other teams doing so well.
Something to look forward to. Michigan State also been number 1 at times in the hockey season so far. Wisconsin, who's Michigan's already played, split at the Yost earlier this year. They're a top 5 team as well. So there's a lot to look forward to. And the Big Ten has got some of the premier hockey talent in the country.
Well, and you think about what is NIL doing, what is revenue sharing doing, what is the changes in college athletics doing? You're seeing higher quality talent. If you look at that Michigan team, the Western Michigan team, the Michigan State team, the Wisconsin team, these are top quality players, most of them going to be great players in the NHL. It's really, really good hockey, so it's fun. Speaking of Michigan State, Steve, man, are you checking your ticker? I don't know if any coaches are on the axe right now, but we had a few before we started our podcast. Of course, Michigan State got rid of Jonathan Smith. Were you surprised that they got rid of Jonathan Smith, Steve?
No,
No.
Not now. I was just kind of curious who they might actually get. I actually even suggested they should look at James Franklin, but James Franklin was looking at Virginia Tech. Honestly, I think James Franklin was looking for something better, and the pressure started coming about James Franklin making a decision. He finally saw that this was the only job that was offering him that he at least wanted. So Michigan State, very interesting. Pat Fitzgerald.
Respect the guy, but he throws you back for people who have watched Michigan and Northwestern for a long time and playing the Big Ten on those great teams for Northwestern. But his teams at the end were really rough. There's the controversy, which we don't need to get into, which, you can probably make up your own mind where it sits on that. I do give Michigan State's athletic director, if you're going to fire someone, I think it's always a good plan, Steve, to already have the answer.
Yeah, well, he did.
Hey, we're firing, and here's the answer. That's a good move. And I don't want to talk about firing. I don't think Sharon Moore should be fired. But if the day comes where we need to make a coaching change, I'd like it to be done like that, where you already have the answer. Here it is, so you don't go into this weird period like we've experienced in a different way with Harbaugh. Like we're kind of waiting to figure out what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And play. And
So
it's yeah.
Some schools, including one in the SEC, got caught. I can't remember which one it was, whether it was Auburn or Arkansas, where they were in the process of trying to hire a coach before they fired their old one, and they were just murdered on press row for doing such a thing. There's a lot of mix with Pat Fitzgerald. Took lowly Northwestern and helped build them into contenders. And they won 2 division titles out in the West. Say what you want to say about the West, someone's got to win it. Did that in 2018 and in 2020 with a combined record of 16-7. But his last 2 years at Northwestern was 3-9 and 1-11. So what are you getting? I'm not exactly sure. I think you're getting some respect. I think there's a lot of people that like Pat Fitzgerald. Michigan tried to hire Pat Fitzgerald, and Pat said no. The Green Bay Packers tried to hire Pat Fitzgerald. Yeah, the NFL Green Bay Packers tried to hire Pat Fitzgerald, and Fitz said no to stay at Northwestern. He really wanted to be a Northwestern lifer. That's not going to happen now. But I think at Michigan State, you just want to get to a point of contention where I can go into the Michigan game feeling like we can beat them on an occasion instead of having your shoulders shrug and probably when's hunting season start.
You wonder, what do we believe? What do we think we're about? We think we're very blue collar. We're tough. We're those things. He does exude some of those things physically, otherwise. Culturally, it does feel like a good fit. We just don't know. The big upside would be, okay, I know he had a horrible athletic department at Northwestern. Is he going to get the resources he needs from donors, from fans, from this athletic department for this football program? And then what can he do with it is the big question. I think it's a good hire. I liked going out to get what looked to be like a youngish prodigy coach in Jonathan Smith. But you always wondered, this is a guy transplanting here that's got that Rich Rod feel. Everyone liked the Rich Rod hire, right? Obviously didn't work out. If you don't think it's going to work out in any business, you're better off cutting bait, separating ways. So you got to give credit for that for State. 2 years.
I don't think you can bring Michigan State from where it was at after Mel Tucker left and expect it to be conference contending within 2 years. I just don't think you could be that low and expect that to happen that quick. At the same time, in the 2-year process, there wasn't much personality there. There wasn't much fight in there. There was more, I don't want to tick people off. I want to be respectful for everybody. I don't want to make waves. Michigan State people want somebody to make waves.
100%.
And upset the hierarchy. The quarterback wasn't working out with Aiden Childs. The offensive line was still a mess. So when you have those two things going against you, how could you be successful? Well, they'll tell you, then stop blowing 10-point leads in the second half. Okay, well, I get it. I understand that. And, of course, Pat Fitzgerald is going to be a good fit for Michigan State no matter what, because if they win, then the Michigan State fans say he's bringing the right guy for the right program back to where we should be. And if he doesn't work out, then all of us in Ann Arbor are going to say perfect fit because Pat Fitzgerald was on his way out and Michigan State is too. So
okay, right.
Perfect fit.
The best thing he could say is you're going to be real proud when we play Michigan.
Like Tressel.
We're going to beat Michigan. We're going to measure ourselves, and we're going to beat Michigan, and we're going to win championships. You cannot avoid the elephant in the room. Rich Rod kind of did. That is how you have to treat this. If you understand it, that's how you have to treat it. You can't be the other way. The best coaches do. D'Antonio did. The best coaches do. Okay.
I would think as a Michigan fan, I'd be more concerned about a Pat Fitzgerald-led Michigan State team than a Jonathan Smith-led Michigan State team. So thumbs up on that.
Yeah.
Do I think Pat Fitzgerald is going to be a perennial 10-2 team in the Big Ten? I don't.
Fair. Yeah.
And so,
would you be happy at this point if Michigan had Pat, like for whatever reason, Sharon moved on? Would you want Pat Fitzgerald?
No,
I don't even.
not now.
Okay.
I might have 10 years ago.
Okay.
But not now.
Okay.
Michigan can do better.
Talk about making the morning shows and making every news cycle. Of course, Steve, Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss, hired by LSU, leaves a sure playoff team behind, a fan base who followed him to the airport, let people hang out to dry for hours, days to make this decision, covered by everybody, is indeed leaving to go to LSU. Attempted to take some staff with him. I don't know who got on that plane. This is what Saban did at Michigan State, by the way. He said, get on the plane if you want to join us. And obviously, you've got a whole fan base at Ole Miss that are fuming right now.
What,
and more, by the way.
What Lane Kiffin was hoping was that he could coach this team throughout, do some side stuff with LSU, and everybody would be happy. Ole Miss just said, look, if you're going to leave us, you're going to pay some consequences. And that means you're not going to enjoy this season. Practically, could you imagine every single interview Lane Kiffin doing with the media? Well, you've taken Ole Miss here to this quarterfinal round, and what's going on at LSU?
You're right.
How many players are you going to take to LSU with you? And I think that's another aspect that Ole Miss wanted to cut the cord right here before all of the best players at Ole Miss will be going to LSU. I think that's still going to happen anyway, but allowing him to be there through their playoff run would have been just made it that much easier.
Yeah.
You could have more personal conversations with some of these guys and talk about life in Baton Rouge and things like that. And, it's a rival. Ole Miss and LSU is a rival, and you just can't have a guy who's going to LSU take this team onward.
Okay, so obviously there's huge shades here to Bill Frieder announcing he's leaving right before the NCAA tournament in 1989, and Bo Schembechler stepping in. Again, with a great line, a Michigan man will coach Michigan, of course. Frieder has a Michigan degree. Steve Fisher does not, but let's forget about that for a moment. Don't ever step on a great line. So, Steve, let's say Lane Kiffin wanted to go to LSU, and that's where his heart is heart. What could he have done differently here in your mind, do you think?
I think he could have made that decision a whole lot of heck earlier.
Earlier.
And
Okay.
or waited out.
Because we've had weeks here since our man Brian Kelly was fired.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Took a long time. There was a lot of dalliances with the media, things like that. The calendar is an issue. Recruiting class is coming in this week. It's the first of two, but it's now the major one. At LSU, you need to have a head coach. Ole Miss would like to know who their head coach is. They hired theirs immediately. The defensive coordinator not getting an interim tag. He was just named the head coach. It's important to have this done between the first week of December and championship weekend. The portal opens up in the middle of the playoffs, and it's only one portal entry for 15 days or 10 days, whatever it is, in the middle of January. Of course, when a coach leaves, that opens it up for an extended 15. When you hire a coach, it extends it another 15. There's things about the calendar that is awful, but Lane Kiffin has a reputation of basically leaving a burning fire wherever he just left. Wherever you hired Lane, you seem to be worse off afterwards. Now, Ole Miss had their best season since 1962 when they were undefeated. But now this team is left with an interim defensive coordinator as your head coach. They might be punished by the playoff committee now that Lane Kiffin and the offensive staff isn't there.
I heard someone talking about that.
They could lose their home game based on that.
So
Don't know if that will happen.
This is like the coaching version of the Florida State injured quarterback situation. You don't have a queen bee. Yep. You're not going to do well. Will you get punished by the committee?
It's possible. They won't get kicked out of the playoff, but they could potentially lose a slot or two, and they could also potentially lose a home game. Meanwhile, this team feels like this is the best thing going. You're Ole Miss fans, you're driving to the airport with your pitchforks, and your torches literally out at the airport. This is your best year ever. Could you imagine if Harbaugh got to the playoff and in the middle of the playoff he says, I'm bolting?
Oh, my God.
I'm bolting for Penn State.
We would lose it.
I'm bolting for Ohio State.
Or even the NFL.
And we finally got here, and it's over?
Yeah, we would.
No.
We would go nuts.
No. And this is Lane Kiffin's reputation.
Yeah, that's rough, man. That's rough. Anything else you saw out there, Steve? Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly, one of those teams people are talking about.
This is going to be talked a lot about on Tuesday. Rivalry week had few surprises, but there weren't as many as usual. It tops, so with Texas upsetting undefeated Texas A&M. And I'm sure SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey is still walking to Grapevine, Texas, with a petition in his hand for the committee in Grapevine that the Longhorns have now beaten 3 top 10 teams. I don't think anybody has done that this year, and you're going to probably take them out because they had 3 losses. Well, Greg Sankey will not stand for this. But the way it stands, Alabama is the team that's on the bubble, the SEC flag bearer. They're at number 10. You're going to have the ACC or maybe even 2 Group of 5 champions taking spots number 11 and number 12. But Texas taking out another SEC team? No, Sankey won't argue for that. He'll argue for Texas over Notre Dame.
Yeah. I don't know how far
number
that's going to
9.
go.
And I just don't see 3-loss Texas taking out 10-win team Notre Dame, although on the surface you'll look at it and you say, well, Notre Dame's lost 2 losses, haven't beaten a top 10 team. Texas has 3 losses, but they've beaten 3 top 10 teams. I'll argue the merit of the SEC isn't as strong as people think it is. But these were the arguments that the committee will have to deal with, and I wouldn't want to be on the committee this year.
No, it's going to be a little ugly, especially for those teams, but fun to watch. I'm kind of hoping Notre Dame gets in. I'd like to see a little more C.J. Carr on the biggest stage, I got to say.
I think Notre Dame has looked like a playoff team from week 1 to week 14. They not playing any championship game because they're not in a conference. Should they have a strike thrown against them for not being in a part of a conference? That's a different discussion for a different time. But they've looked playoff worthy all the way throughout.
Right on, man. All right. So we will be around. We didn't talk about the Ohio State-Indiana matchup. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit next week. We got more basketball coming up soon. More hockey. We'll cover it here. Anything else, Steve, for today?
I just want to say one thing, Greg.
Yeah, tell me.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.